Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my stream. Today's topic is my storytelling stream. Last week I had Pecos Dave on telling his story, and this week I'm going to continue with my project that I have going with my short stories. Last time I went over the plot for it, but after that I said I was gonna cover the plot or it was for Lycia is what I did, but this time I said I was going to go over my Draco plot, but I changed my mind because I want to stay on the first short story that's going in the that's going in the first short story basically, and I'm going to cover the outline, kind of go over the story. Before I do, I'd like to welcome Karma Love. Welcome to the stream, Karma.
Hi, thank you.
You're welcome. And it's like I said before I started the recording for this, if you want to have a conversation, don't be shy. It's good to get some feedback or what you think of it if you want to talk about it. Okay.
Okay.
So and this, well, I'll go back over some stuff real quick. In this project that I have, it's kind of different than what I've done when it comes to writing. Um, First of all, it's plotted. It's going to have a plot and a theme, or no, an outline. I've always done the outlines, but I've really never done anything with a serious plot put into my stories, so I'm going to do that. And not only am I going to put a plot in it, but it's not going to be one story. It's going to be multiple short stories that are all connected together, and each short story is going to have a plot. Now, the way I'm doing it, my plot is going according to a plot format that's called Saved by the Cat, and it's a beat sheet. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, Karma.
No, can you say the name again? Because my signal was sounding really choppy. What did you say it was called?
It's called Save the Cat. It's a beat sheet, and it has three acts, 3 or 4 acts, I believe. And what I'm doing is I'm going according to that format when it comes to a plot. And I can go over what I've covered and everything so far, so with it and everything. So the plot that I have is going to have let me see if I can pull up some stuff. I have it all set up and everything. I just have to be able to, so I've got my outline set up for it and my plot set up for it. And what it is like you have an opening an opening image. And with that opening image, it's just like one scene that you make to start the story out. And for me, I made it about Lycia, which that's what the short story is about. Okay, so
Okay.
it's a land called Lycia, but in the scene, there's the main character of the short story, and he's I refer to him as the Over King instead of just King, and his name's Zuthra. And in the scene, he's sitting on his throne, and it's sitting up on a dais, and it's surrounded by pillars that stretch real high up into the ceiling of this throne room that's called the Divine Throne Room. So that's the opening image, and it's supposed to only be like 1 page long. So I have to make that opening image kind of go over Lycia and the divine throne room and the throne and the dais. And then I also am going to go over the pillars of the divine throne room too. So,
Do you have any visuals already or not yet?
yeah, I've got the story basically written out and everything with it. Now, after that, there's also the throne on top of this dais, and there's steps that lead down from it, and right in front of them there's this pool, you know, and I called it the pool of visions. And I'm gonna kind of speak about that in the story. I'm not gonna get too descriptive about it, you know what I mean? But I'm gonna kind of show the environment, what's going on there, and then I'm gonna go into the Overking, what the Overking is, and then about King Zuthra. And that'll be like the opening image, the first thing that's read in the story.
Are we able to hear a little bit, or you just rather
Oh
do it
yeah,
all up? Okay.
I've got it. I'll do it later on, but like I'm kind of going through uh, the process of writing the story and what I have to do. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so, like that's basically the opening image, and later on I can get through that. It's going to be on a different stream, but I'll have that out there where you'll get more of an idea of where I'm going for, you know what I mean? But like these are the first steps that I had to do, you know what I mean? I had to set up my plot, and then I had to do an outline for my plot and say this is what I want to take place within my plot. And not everybody uses an outline, but I just feel more comfortable doing it because even when I wasn't even when I wasn't using a plot, I was doing an outline for my story and breaking it down so that I'd be able to write it out and have it where I wanted it. And that's basically what I'm going through right now, you know, and trying to explain that. And then after I do that opening image, I have the setup, and the setup is about 1 3/5 page long, maybe you know 2/3, however I want to do it, however the story comes out. And in that, I'm going to explain the known planes of existence, okay? And within this realm, it's not going to be connected to Earth or anything like this. This is like a land far off that nobody knows about. You know what I mean? Like here on Earth, it's not even a part of it.
Right.
And within these planes of existence, there's 6 known planes of existence, but there can be more. You know what I mean? And I've named them the higher planes of Lycia, the planes of Protean, the cardinal planes, the Ophidian planes, the Serpentine planes, and then the Saurian planes. So I go through and what I basically did is I sat down and I threw some ideas in my head, you know what I mean? And I started thinking about, you know, what do I want within these planes? So I can give you kind of a description of that, you know what I mean, and everything. But in my story, I basically wrote legends tell of a time when man was first born into existence. He was from the land up high and slowly descended into the realms below. Within this higher plane of existence lived a mighty Overking and his beautiful subjects. They lived in the land that was commonly referred to as the higher heavens of Lycia, where each man lived peaceful lives, each unburdened with the toils of man, and each with a desire for more out of life. Within the higher heavens of Lycia, lived imams, sentinels, hunters, woodsmen, and all manner of creatures in the wild. No draconian lived here. This was a place only for humans. The beginning of their kind started here. The beings who occupy this land are no strangers to evil which lay outside. Warriors trained to defend the freedoms they have for the sake of their people. Most of the inhabitants have strong mental abilities which stretch further than that of the ordinary human. These humans believe in honor and stand close to the powers of light rather than giving into the darkness from below. And that's what I wrote out, just saying to myself, okay, what do I want to put out there for the higher heavens of Lycia? So I did that one. That's the first part of it. And then it goes on to part. I've got here we go. I've got to figure out what I'm doing here.
While you do that, how did you get inspired to do this?
Well, see, I've said this in earlier ones too. I was actually inspired to do these short stories mostly because of a combination of ufology and like role-playing games, you know what I mean?
Cool.
So it was kind of a mix into there. And I forgot to mention it too before in like the older streams, like I was influenced too by a lot of stuff that was written back when like H.P. Lovecraft was around. There was a writer who, I don't know if you've ever watched or heard of Conan the Barbarian, but
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he was a character that like still survives today, but he was like back in those days with H.P. Lovecraft. The guy who wrote his story was actually older than the guy that did was older than H.P. Lovecraft, and they both wrote for the same magazine. And he had just like unbelievably great stories, you know what I mean? So that really inspired me as well. And that's kind of another aspect that I wanted to incorporate into it. So I go further into my description and I say, with powers of extraordinary abilities, they can lift their arm and command nature itself. Foresight is common among these humans, able to see in the future. Some can see seconds, minutes, and only hours, while others can see ahead in cycles. Now, cycles I wanted to make as years, you know what I mean? The entire rotation around the sun. So that's what a cycle is in my story.
Okay.
And then it says, above all things, the people respect all life, not just their own, but every creature that exists and draws breath. Though the high heavens of Lycia is untouched by any draconian attacks that occurred within the Lycian Empire, they still have the ability to travel freely among the plains and realms outside of the high heavens that they call home, usually traveling to places for a good hunt, trade with other beings, and teaching others about freedom, inner truths, and independence. Most of the time, though, they travel to other realms of splendor, adventuring to areas that most wouldn't dare go. Mapping out areas of the unknown is one of the highest honors to any individual within the higher heavens of Lycia. It is the highest form of intellect among the scholars within the realm, discovering the powers of the outer worlds in order to harness it and bring those powers within their grasp. That's the second part of it. And then the third one I wrote, the ground within the realms of the higher heavens consists of precious gems, diamonds, emeralds, and gold. Structures are built in strange angular shapes. Some reach high into the sky, while others shoot out like blades of grass in all different directions. These structures were originally a part of the landscape, but were hollowed out and made into places for the people of this realm to live. Wildlife still roams the countryside, and the grass still grows, but not as softly as that of grass in the lower realms of Lycia. The sparkle of grasses and soil reflect everything as the golden sun shines. At night, the sky is filled with a beautiful borealis of lights, stretching across the sky with a wondrous amount of bright blue stars in the background. Gentle snow sits upon mountaintops high above and can be seen from the warm, tranquil towns below. The cold air on these mountains are dry, making life there easy to live into. The air itself is fragrance with scents like that of perfumes. Fountains of healing water are scattered throughout the lands, free to all who wish to use it. After the invasion of the Draconian, the high heavens of Lycia was untouched, but in place where the divine palace once stood, the city of Nobar was built. Its mighty ziggurat gleamed in the beautiful sunlight of the higher heavens, and the people tell the story written on the murals of its walls about the mighty Zuthra. Now, a lot of that probably isn't going to go into the story, you know what I'm saying? But these are ideas that I threw together so that I could kind of get inspired with the story. So, yeah,
It sounds really good and it's intriguing. Like I was in the middle of doing something and I put my stuff down. I'm like, wait, I gotta finish this because it makes you just want to listen. It's kind of captivating. That's why I would like to hear
right.
more.
See, this is like the highest. This is the highest realm. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, and humans can travel within realms in this story. So, and there's six
And
of
is
them
there
that are
something?
known.
What allows them to travel? Is it just their mind projection, or is it some special technique in which they have to utilize in order to be able to?
Well, it's a combination. Um, well, first of all, let me kind of tell you about my story. My story, it's not going to like use the term magic. It's not going to use the term technology. To these people, they're both one and the same. They don't see a difference between the two. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have a story that's filled with a lot of magic and a lot of it that it has technology incorporated with it. And some of the people within these realms are going to be traveling among the stars. Some of them are. Some of them are going to be living in that realm, like Lycia that I just described, and then and a lot of them actually in the story are going to be coming from really harsh, brutal environments. You know what I mean? Where it's hard to live and they have to survive. You know, things like that. So it's pretty. So far from what I've got from it, it's pretty good setup. I like how it's going. It's just I didn't think there would be so much involved in it because like when I did the plot, I really had to rethink the way I write.
And what ways? And what ways?
Well, first I have to trim the fat on a lot of the stuff that I come out with. Like I like to come out with big, you know, with a lot of ideas and just throw it into the story. Then with the plot and an outline together, I have to actually say, hold on, man, I can hold off on that and use it later. You know what I mean? Because it's too much information at that particular time in the story. So I catch myself doing that where I actually give too much information, basically.
Mm.
So as I'm going through it with a plot and an outline, I'm starting to realize that I need to, kind of keep track of what it is I'm doing and the time frame in which I'm doing it, because like whenever you're telling a story, you can't be, first of all, you can't be too descriptive. I mean, you tell the story, but you have to leave something for the imagination when it comes to the person reading, you know what I mean?
Right, so that they can incorporate and create, yeah, make it relatable, or at least to where they feel like they can relate and immerse themselves within the reading. Yeah, definitely.
And then like you know, you don't want to sit there explaining the whole story to them. Let their minds take control and let their imaginations kind of make a part of it, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to say I'm stepping out the door and then describe every inch of the way down the street, you know what I mean? Or what the house looked like, or what the sidewalk looked
Let
like.
them have the opportunity to figure it out, or at least create it for themselves, because then that makes it even more real for them.
Right. And that's kind of what I really like about the whole thing about it, because it it really does bring that out for me. Okay, let me see if I that that is what I'm gonna do with the known planes of existence, and then with Zuthra, it you got to remember he in the opening scene he's sitting up on this throne, right? So what happens is he let me see if I got the right no what happens is he's sitting up on this throne and it's an opening scene and there's that pool of visions that's right in front of him, and something happens to where he stands up from his throne and he has to walk down to this pool of visions, and when he does, over by the pillars which are stretched out all along the sides of this divine throne room, he has to or these monks come out like dressed in hoods and stuff, and they walk up to this throne or this pool of visions with him, and he's standing in front of it now, and they all take hands and hold each other's hands, and energy starts coming out of the pillars, and from the pillars they emit energy into him, you know what I mean? And while he's holding these monks' hands, he's transferring this information over to them. So he's kind of like a conduit, which is transferring the visions from this pool from him to these monks. Well, after that's all said and done, what happens is one of the monks comes out and he says a statement, and that is a part of the story that I have to add in, and it's called theme stated. And theme stated is basically where the main character hears like a saying at the beginning of the story, and usually it's in the the setup, okay, and the opening scene somewhere around there. Like, but mostly it's in the setup, and the setup is what I was telling you about. It's usually, or this one's going to be like 1 3/5 of a page long, and he says this saying, and it's a theme stated is usually said by somebody who's just insignificant and really doesn't have any part in the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
like an
later,
NPC.
right? But later on in the story, Zuther is going to have an aha moment where he's going to remember these words being said to him, and it's going to change his entire outlook. Okay, so that's where I'm going to be placing the theme stated, and the theme stated is going to be this monk. After he's holding hands with these other ones, he's sitting over to the side, and he yells out, the act of providence is in knowing of things to come before they happen. And he does this every time they do this ritual. Okay, so he's heard it all the time.
And what's his name again?
There, it's not, the guy's not going to have a name. As a matter of fact,
Oh, this is the one who does. Okay,
none
okay.
of these monks are going to have a name or anything. They're
Okie dokie.
mysterious monks that appear out from behind the pillars. Yeah.
You got to make it into a movie too. That's cool.
So this happens all the time on a day-to-day basis, and while he's sitting there and he's staring down into these this pool of visions, he has visions of the past, sometimes visions of the present, visions of the now. It's just a pool of visions, and Zuthra is staring down at this pool, and he starts having visions about how he had gained his wives, and that gets me into the second, or the freaking second part of the setup, which is going to be the Great Seduction. Now, I had to tone that one down too, because like I had to think through it pretty hard, because it was kind of tough to get going. And the reason why I did this part was because that actually was inspired from ancient history with Enki and Enlil from the Sumerians, and the Great
Um,
Seduction. I wanted to incorporate that into it too, which they're a part of the ufology stuff too. But with Zuthra, he had to perform, and every other Overking before him, he had to perform what was called the Great Seduction. Okay, and in order, the reason why he had to do the Great Seduction is he had to have wives that he had to get through this Great Seduction. And how he did it was he entered their minds, and he would claim them as his wife by consummating the marriage, you know what I'm saying, having impregnate them and stuff. And he would choose the wives and enter their mind, and he would seduce them, like while they slept or during having visions, stuff like that. And the reason why he did it was because he had to worry about the purity and the survival of the bloodline of his family. That was more important than anything else, even above being Overking. So that's one thing. And the moment that he took them as their wives, they would give birth to his children, and one of those children would become Overking later on, and that was one of the things.
Wait, hold on. So, even if he only like inhibited their minds, like he came inside of their minds, they would still get pregnant just through that, or
Yeah,
like
just
almost
through
like
that.
Mary. Oh wow, that's wow.
Just through that. He didn't have to have physical contact with a woman in order to impregnate her. He could
And
just, and being honest, he didn't even have to touch them. He could have just freaking entered their mind.
where did you get this idea from?
It's freaking ufology and freaking D&D.
Right, that's just crazy because like this is like I heard of this before and like
Well,
I don't
ancient
know.
history too. So
Yeah, that's why I'm saying like this is a real concept and it's just amazing that you're writing a book about it. Go ahead, I'm listening.
okay, so you have the great seduction, and then consummating the marriage. And what I did there is I ended up. Let me see if I got part. I got to pull up part two. But with the consummation, what I do is I go through and I name off his wives. First, he had a Lubu, and Lubu was seduced when he placed his hand upon her head while she slept. And in her dream, he made love to her and impregnated her and consummated their marriage. Now, she, all he did was place his hand on her head. Okay, that was it. The actual act never even happened.
Yeah, I've heard about third eyes. Remember we were talking about that and being able to transfer energy through touching third eye. And like I never knew about the hand touch. Like I know if you do it, like I know this type of stuff is definitely possible with concentrated energy through, like I said, the pineal gland. But in regards to using your hand, no, I knew we can transfer energy using that, but I didn't know we could consummate and have intercourse through that. That's kind of hot.
Now, the second wife, her name was Senti, and she was seduced when he entered her mind while she was going down to the river to bathe. Now, what happened was is he seduced her into a hunt because she was a hunter, and that's when he impregnated her within a dream when she would rest at night. Like it took multiple days for her chasing down this wild animal, trying to hunt it and kill it. And each day she'd get tired, and by the time the sun was getting ready to go down, she'd camp and lay down. And when she went to go lay down and rest, he would seduce her, and eventually he impregnated her while she was asleep on the hunt. So that was the third one. Now Tiana was the third. No, the second one was Senti. Tiana was the third one. Now she was different because Tiana was seduced through a really unusual circumstance where, because of her and the people that she came from, she and her people were. It was the females that were the dominant of the two between males and females, and they would usually torture and kill their men when they weren't useful. They would. At first, I wanted to say that they only kept the female babies when they were impregnated, but then I thought about that. I was like, I don't think any kind of society be that stupid. You know what I mean? So yeah, I can make it to where they kill the men and stuff when they no longer become useful. But even then, at first, I just in my mind I was like, yeah, there's no men involved whatsoever. But then I like, well, hold on, they got to procreate, and anybody in their right mind would know that procreation is important. So that's when I had to go and I had to kind of go back over that and rewrite it to where I could fit that in. So they would use men for like cannon fodder in battle, or working the mines, or procreation, whatever. But once they were done with them, they would torture them, and they loved to torture their men with freaking whips and shit like that, and until they were dead, and they enjoyed that. So,
Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. Time out. The women used to beat the men?
yeah. No, I mean,
Mm-mm.
this ain't in real life. This is my story.
No, 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 no. Because no, listen, there are cultures that talk about secret societies actually being headed. I've been reading. I wish I could remember the name of this documentary because this is not the first time that I've heard this stuff. And women were actually the heads of these secret societies. There's this one particular one. I'm gonna have to go through my history, and they would do stuff like that. And that is kind of what caused the, I don't like to say the turn, but to where men's desire for dominance came in, because we women were actually the ones who were the superior, and they used to have men and take them kind of slaves, which would explain some men's fetish with being like in bondage
Yeah.
and like yeah, wow. And you got that in your story. No, that's real. That's why you're saying it's not in real life, but it is in real life. Like, that's
Well,
sort of.
the big inspiration for me on this one was off of Forgotten Realms. The other day when I told you about Boulder's Gate,
Mm-hmm.
that's a part of Forgotten Realms. And in Forgotten Realms, they have these characters called Scourge Maidens. And Scourge Maidens were like that too. They they lived off of hate and anger and resentment, and they wanted nothing to do with men. It was a society that was built on just women. You know what I mean? And that their characters in the game is actually pretty cool. So what I wanted to do was incorporate that kind of character into this story, and that's where I came up with Tiana. But she was rough because I had to have Zuthra, who is the Overking, and he's up here, in the higher heavens of Lycia, and he's supposed to be all goody goody and everything, and he becomes attracted to Tiana. So I had to figure out the best way of incorporating her into it, and even though she was like this and her people were like this, uh, they he was he was obsessed with her. Like he was attracted to her, and he wanted to have her as a wife. So what he did is he used her bloodlust in order to freaking seduce her. And how he did it was he made himself appear to her as one of her slaves, and he allowed her to torture him.
Mm.
And after a while, through her lust for blood, Zuthra was able to consummate the marriage and impregnate her with his child.
Wait
So
a minute. So her lust for blood, is it like the taste of it, or does she like to like murder people?
she loves to murder people. She,
Mm.
I mean, uh, towards the end of the story, it gets even worse with her. Like, and I can cover that here before long. But she, she's one during this phase of my story series. She's very important. That's pretty much the way to explain it. Um, she she plays an important part in this part. So I in the story I talk about the great seduction. Then I talk about consummating the marriage between Zuthra and his wives, and then I go into the bloodline. I start explaining, the bloodline and Alubu and Sinti and Tiana. I start elaborating more on them other than the fact that he seduced them. You know, what kind of people they were. You know, the like Tiana, what I was telling you about her society, where it was dominated by women. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is what I basically had to do there, and I put this outline together to where I could do it in that order too. So first I'd talk about the known planes of existence, then I'd talk about the great seduction, then consummating the marriage, then the bloodlines. Then I would get more in depth with Alubu, Cinti, and Tiana, so that it's, you know, outlined. And I'm alright with it, you know what I mean, with the way it is and stuff. But there, like I said, there's a lot of things that I had to rethink whenever I was doing it, because like I was wanting to put too much out too fast, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you were putting too much information with it. Absolutely, I
Yeah.
understand.
And then I had to also incorporate the theme stated. Now that's hard. Um, when I was doing all of this, you know, and I know it doesn't sound hard at all, but it really does. Like the theme stated, when I had to make that, I had to make it to where it actually like gives him that aha moment, and when he has that aha moment in the story, that's where everything changes. Like if the story's going downward with him, he has this aha moment and it starts going back up. You know what I mean? Things start getting better. And then it's the opposite. If he's having a good life and he has that aha moment, boom, his life starts going bad. You know?
Well, what causes this?
It's the theme stated. He has that moment of clarity where, aha, you know what I mean? Or that's if it's positive. You know what I mean? Like if things are going bad for him and he has that aha moment, things make a change and it starts going uphill for him. But like say he's a bad person, you know what I mean? And he's just doing all this rotten stuff, and things are going good for him, you know what I mean? Then all of a sudden he has that aha moment and things start going bad, you know what I mean? Now all of a sudden all this good stuff is starting to bug him and he's freaking starting to change, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what the theme stated is about. Kind of like Scrooge.
Yeah, like after, yeah, and he sees all the different ghosts, and then he realizes, hey, I might have to make a change. I was the one who was doing the wrong thing. That's so dope.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to do that kind of stuff in short stories. And I'm going to tell you right now that that's tough, because I can sit and I can write a story all day long for as long as I need to, but I've never tried to do short stories until now. And I'm talking about like 16-page short stories.
So is this one about finished? Because I would like to read it. Where do we find it? Is it like Amazon or is it in the
Well,
bookstore?
right now, I'm actually writing it out. I've got the raw draft put together on it, but I still need to go through it and everything and get it written out to do like the first draft and get it set up and going good. So like I'm in the process of writing this.
Right.
But now after I do the theme stated, I mentioned the catalyst, right? And the catalyst is, let me make sure I'm right, is basically where I start talking about the imams that I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and then about merchants within these realms and kingdom that Zuther is a part of. And I'm done with that part. But I get into the imams, and I start talking about the realms and the merchants and the warlords, and how the warlords pillage and like the merchants trade goods. And in this story, I'm making it to where like they have a real tight control over trade, and they dictate uh, what's being made and who can make it, and who people can buy from and sell to. So they have a real strong hold on merchandise, and people who buy and sell stuff. You know what I mean?
Basically, the British.
Well, they're
Well,
guilds.
London.
They're all ran through guilds, and like you have to go to a guild in order to get something fixed. And if you go to somebody who isn't a part of these guilds, then and if you're caught, you could be killed for it, basically. And,
Mm.
and then there's going to be warlords that destroy settlements who don't follow their orders and pay tribute to them, stuff like that. So
Mm.
um, I also want to get more into like the whole idea of behind Lycia and the way they think. You know what I mean? Because like I don't what I wanted to kind of put an image across is like the Lycians don't see things as good versus evil. You know what I'm saying? They believe in like balance between darkness and light. You know,
Mm.
and this is even in areas where there's brutality and there's freaking harsh environments and stuff like that. They still see it as a balance between darkness and light. So they don't necessarily believe it's good and evil. And where I got that concept from was the Sumerians, because they kind of believed in that way too. You know what I mean? Like they first of all, like the Sumerians didn't believe that humans went to heaven. Everybody when they died were buried and they went to the underworld. You know what I mean? the only beings that went to freaking On were the gods, and that was it. And
Mm.
it wasn't when they died they could freely travel back and forth. But
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of incorporate that kind of belief. You know what I mean? Where there's darkness and then there's light. So
Yeah. And darkness really does not exist. It's just a lesser light. There's no such thing as darkness, just the lowest frequency of light.
mhm.
Yeah.
So then in the Catalyst, that's when a new character emerges, and I call him Obtu, and he's a Draconian. And Obtu is a reptilian priest of the Draco.
Mm.
Now he travels to Lycia so that he could sway humans into following the ways of the Draco. And that's where you start, or I'll start introducing the Draconians into the story, but they're not going to be like focused on in this short story. They'll be in the next ones. But I wanted to introduce them into it so that people are aware of them by the time the next short story comes along.
Right.
And um, as he comes in and he starts swaying humans into following the ways of the Draco, he starts influencing some of the moms, and those moms become self-proclaimed satraps. And
What's a satrap?
satraps are like well, a satrap, first of all, in real life is like over in the Middle East. Satrap would be the equivalence of a king or an emperor.
Okay.
So, like these imams, they're like the holy priests for Zuthra, okay? With, real strong abilities and stuff. And uh, Optu comes to Lycia and he starts swaying humans into following the ways of the Draco, and he eventually influences some of these imams, who then becomes self-proclaimed satraps, and Zethra is forced into like decreasing their power, and then he would go and he'd start replacing moms uh, with people that he could trust.
Hmm.
And as time went by, responsibilities of the imams only consisted of like delegating between trade merchants. Now, right there is kind of like falling into Obtu's plan, because many of those merchants were conspiring with Obtu in illegal trades. Okay, so now you have these imams whose only responsibility is dealing with these merchants, and a lot of these merchants are being influenced by Obtu as well. Um, so that automatically becomes an issue in the story.
Yeah, I was about to say, does that not make them not want feel like dealing with the moms? Because in that regards, if they're basically seemingly being to become obliviated, or at least to where they have less importance in regards, and they're attempting it sounds like he's attempting to fade them out and bring in, like you said, people he can trust, and but he has them dealing with people who are basically aware of this concept or mindset, and that's who they're dealing with directly. Is that, yeah, that does that I mean, obviously would create a problem, because yeah, wait a minute, why are we dealing with these people? You said they're basically
Well,
nobody's. Isn't this
not
what you
not only
believe?
that, but you got to remember, like, these trade merchants are dealing basically in a black market too, with Obtu in illegal trades, and Obtu is not only dealing in like drugs, he's dealing in drugs, he's dealing in slaves, he's dealing in black market shit. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
the really bad stuff.
Trafficking, all the bad, yeah, the naughty stuff, right?
Right. So these merchants are working legitimately on the surface, but behind the scenes, they're also working in the black markets. And as well as dealing in the black markets, they're also having contact with these imams, who gives them the opportunity to influence those imams into following Optu in the ways of the Draconians, or the Draco. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mass
like,
manipulation.
so like, uh, Zuthra is basically actually falling into Optu's plan. You know what I mean? Of trying to expand his influence up into the hierarchies in the realm. So, um, right there, I wanted it to be like that. And then, like I said, the illegal trades consist of like human slave trade and genetic research, which I do want to get into the genetic research with the Draco, because that's where a lot of the ufology comes from. Because the Draco are the reptilians, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna bring out some of that stuff with ufology about the genetic research that ufologists believe um, in real life. You know what I mean? With like the stories they tell and stuff like that. And it's gonna be about human slave trade, genetic research, and then drugs which can convert humans into like mindless followers of whoever has it. They'll just mindlessly follow them and do whatever they want them to do. And
Vaccine to me.
yeah, and I I call that Soma. So
Sama.
Soma, yeah.
Like
And
Hyatt.
well, Soma, yeah.
I was just making sure I'm hearing the names correctly. I mean, if it's, I mean, I get it. It's just that's how I relate it. So Selma Hayek. Okay, cool. Selma. Call it Selma.
Soma.
Soma.
Yeah.
Soma.
So most of the imams and merchants are influenced by this drug. So what they do is they get the contacts with the imams, and then a lot of the imams turn into self-proclaimed satraps. Now they end up becoming influenced by this drug soma, and those that are still doing the trades and the illegal stuff and siding with the Dracos and all that, they aren't influenced by it. They're just greedy, you know what I mean, and they do it. So, they agree with doing the trades with Op2, so and that's just purely out of greed. So that's what I wanted to do there when it comes to uh, Op2 and stuff like that. So, um,
Good idea. Mm-hmm.
so basically, I went through and I did that where I got to the merchants and then Op2, and then it comes to the debate, and that's about 2 pages long. And what happens there is I was telling you about Tiana and the way that,
Yeah, the bloodthirsty one.
yeah, and how he seduced her and impregnated her and made her his wife. Well, in the debate, what I want to do is I want to make a betrayal, and it's going to be with Tiana, because Tiana, like I said, comes from a society where it's ruled by women, and the fact that he did this, it actually didn't make her feel good. It pissed her off, you know what I mean? So in her mind, she wants revenge on Zuthra for what he had done. So she's sitting in the background and she's waiting for the right time. And eventually she betrays Zuthra and sides with Obtu and the Draco. And then she turns around and orchestrates an uprising that's going to take place among the merchants and the self-proclaimed satraps within Zuthra's realm. So that is probably as far as what I want to go right now, and I can come back and do another thing on it if you want to, and see what you guys think about it. So since you've been
Yeah.
so quiet, Moose, what do you think? I know you're there.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Moose, he's just listening. But anyhow, what do you think? You like the story?
Yes, I'm so interested. That's why I'll keep asking you. Like, I would like more, but you say it's not complete yet. You say you come back and do some more. Can you read a little bit? Can you read it just like a
No,
little while?
no. See, that's the secret of writing.
Right, you don't read it while you do it. I know. I'm writing stories too. So I
No,
mean,
no. I mean that's the secret of writing. You got to keep people in suspense.
I understand. It's just like it could be my nighttime bedtime story. You can read to me. I think you should start doing that. That'll be nice. And you could just read, oh my goodness, and just get like, like it was a cool fall evening. The wind was brisk, and I'll just be sitting here like, yeah, thank you. You're gonna have to make my stuff hang up for me because I'll definitely probably, pass out. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You should do it. Incorporate it as a story time.
Well, I can go through and kind of read you the beginning of it, and it's not all put together yet. You know what I mean? Like there's still things that I have to do. Like I have to put conversations, actual conversations into it, and I have to make it more believable and stuff like, or not believable, but
Relatable. But
Yeah,
listen, you don't have to explain even all of that. I feel like just the fact, you know what I mean? Like, you can see where you're going. You know
yeah,
what I mean? I mean, if you're paying attention, you can see exactly where you're going, and it's not at all a hard concept to grasp onto. So, I mean, like, yeah, I would like to hear some more. You say you can read the beginning for a little while?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so like right here, it says, within the lands of a far off place, Lycia is a kingdom that spans three spheres of the known plains. Within it are streets of jeweled splendor and golden sunshine. These are not the only lands of Lycia, though. There are many diverse environments, cultures, and civilizations that dwell here among the different planes of existence. Lands that are unforgiving, primal, and filled with wild beasts. Jungles that reach up to the sky can take a person without ever leaving a trace of that person ever being there. Planets so unforgiving, the ground itself has the power to kill.
Mm.
Within the center of the divine throne room, a throne, a throne sits. No, within the center of the divine throne room. Uh, I messed that up. It says a throne. Yeah, within the center of the divine throne room, a throne sits upon a dais. The dais rises about 200 feet above the floor, and each side of this dais has steps that lead up onto it. Transparent crystals were used in order to create most of the things within this throne room, making the environment bright and full of reflections. Pillars stretch high within the room to a ceiling that is so high it can barely be seen. Rumors have it that these pillars don't even connect to the ceiling, and their mysteries are but a wonder. They too cast off reflections of a mystical blue aura of beauty. Strange symbols that uh, Strange symbols are carved into these pillars in the dais as well. Energy flows along the surface of these pillars, swaying like snakes swimming upon the surface of a stream. The bright reflection the bright reflective glow of the throne, dais, and divine pillars cast off of the walls and down onto a mysterious pool of visions below. Visions bounce in and out within the waters of this mystical pool. A blue aura hangs over it, and the water itself never sits still, as if it is boiling in low temperatures. The water itself, though, isn't cold at all. Still, it produces a mist that rises above itself into the divine throne room above.
Mm.
And that's it. That's all
You
you
can see it.
get.
And it's horrible. I'm sitting here, I'm picturing the throne, I'm picturing the mist, I'm picturing. Okay, fine. So next Monday, then more.
Yeah, I can do some more. Unless I get somebody that wants to tell their story. I'm going to do storytelling where I can find people who's willing to tell their story. I want to add that into my streams as well. So if you know anybody who's willing to sit down and tell their story, they can start at any time period in their life, whatever, just uh, tell everybody about their story and end it wherever they want to. That's something that I'm looking forward to if anybody wants to do that.
That sounds like it'll be cool.
Yeah, kind of like what Pecos Dave. I keep trying to say it right because I keep
You
mispronounce it.
saying it right.
Pecos,
Pecos State, yeah, Pecos. Because
like
I
he,
keep hearing him saying Pecos, Texas, because he says it with a little southern drawl. And so, like, it's just, yeah, you're saying it correctly.
but that's kind of one thing that I've always been wanting. To find people who are willing to tell their story. It doesn't have to be exciting or anything. Just sit down and tell your story.
Yeah, who are you? Where do you come from? And, like, how did you make it to this point? Or whatever point they feel as though they'd like to stop at, correct?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I've got 30 seconds before an hour and 5 minutes. I am going to end this stream. All right.
Alrighty then. Well, I'll see you around soon, and I'll see you tomorrow.
I appreciate you and Moose showing up. So thank you guys for showing up and listening.
Alrighty then. Have a good night. Be safe.
You too. Alright, so I am off of Jitsi and I will stop recording now and stop the stream.